So it sounds like your value a lot to those people were that you have like a different kind of a talent stack. Like and it's even more now as we've kind of come into like a digital kind of understanding of music. You were there when the transition happened, I guess.
Yes, and I've found too that now, I mean, Steve Earle brought me out of my DJ retirement, and I can't believe it came around full circle like that. I mean, I hadn't done anything like that, and
right.
That was awesome. And I'm performing. It was It was really great. And we went to 14 different countries. I was out for about a year and a half.
Wow,
and it was awesome. But yeah, I've found that because you're freelancing, you've got to be some kind of chameleon. You've got to, if audio is your thing or video or whatever, I mean, I've branched out into some other things and kept it close. I tried to break into the film industry in Atlanta, or as they call Yollywood, and you've just got to keep up with things and,
right.
Again, be a chameleon.
Yeah, it sounds like you're pretty good at that. So when everything started going digital, what year did that kind of happen, and how did you adapt?
Gosh, I've got to say, for me, it was not that digital consoles weren't out already, but
right.
2005, I think that's right. I was out with Lorrie Morgan, and she rented a Yamaha M7CL from Spectrum Audio here in Nashville. And they let me get it and take it home. And I had it in my kitchen, and I just was labeling things and going through it. And I'm going to do monitors on this thing. And that's really when it started for me. I mean, the Yamaha PM1D, which was a massive, arena console, and the PM5D, I think, was out then. And that's when it all, I had to jump into it.
Right.
And then there's companies like Digico out of England. And the great thing about Nashville is I called, I think it was Meyer Audio. They make speakers and stuff, Meyer Sound. They had an office in Soundcheck, and they had a D5 Digico console. And there was a band I was going out with that had that. And I called them up and said, hey, can I jump on that board for a couple of days?
Right.
And they were like, sure, come on down. People are very supportive,
Yeah.
And I went down and fiddled with that and labeled stuff up. And the thing is, you can throw it on a little flash drive. So when I went out with a band,
you just load it.
I'm in a great place to start.
Yeah.
And then they start making their changes.
Exactly.
And then I can hit save, and I've got that. And that's the great thing about it. In the analog days, you had to carry gears of racks of gear, EQs, compressors, gates, all that kind of stuff. Well, now that's all in it.
It's all built in.
That's all in.
But I will say, piece. I bet there's a lot of value in you knowing the equipment a little more, because when I came into it, I'm kind of a hobby audio person. When I came into it,
right.
It was all digital already. So I don't really have any relationship with the function of what these do by themselves out on an island, or what they did originally, like what it means for it to be compressed. And so I bet you're better at having an overall understanding of the mechanics.
I think going from audio to digital, again, I am old school. And so the argument is you're going from analog to technically ones and zeros.
Yeah.
Almost an AI thing,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I even know some old cats that, if they're not on an audio console and some outboard gear, they don't even want to mess with it, which they're only casting themselves out of a job,
Well, yeah.
But yeah, I think having the understanding, like even take an analog synthesizer where you've got knobs and dial, like filter controls, and there's a thing called ADSR, which is attack, decay, sustain, and release. And now you've got to go through a menu and program it, or have what they call an editor librarian on a computer that'll tell that digital synthesizer what to do.
Right.
So having an understanding of it in an analog world, gives you more of an understanding in a digital world, or what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case because it's all based on that. It's all just kind of replicating the analog.
That's exactly it. I mean, it's a plug-in. It's a recreation of what, it's a ones and zeros of what that analog piece of gear is supposed to do. Which
is pretty funny when you think that analog, at least sound reproduction, is kind of a reproduction of actual acoustic live sound. And so now digital is a reproduction of the analog live sound. So that's kind of a funny thought.
If you're going to play acoustic and you're going into a digital console, you're sending an analog signal.
Right.
It's getting converted into ones and zeros.
Mm-hmm.
And then taking those ones and zeros and converting it back into analog to go out to speakers.
Right. So I bet you're pretty good at
schools of thought on that whole thing.
Does it make you better at miking, like mic placement and understanding room dynamics and things like that?
In a difference between analog and digital?
No, just you having the analog experience. It seems like that would have been a lot more important than.
Yeah, I mean, mic placement. Listen, mic placement and players. Anything you can do before having to, say, fix something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're ahead of the game.
Right.
There's little that you have to do. If you've got a great player and, they've got a great rig, even if it's just pedals and they're coming out to a signal, you've got a great drummer
and a great room,
decent mics and can get good mic placement.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a whole lot of EQing and things that you have to do to it. All of that you've got to know. And the thing now too, is everybody's going in ears,
right?
Where, with monitors, you had to ring things out. Feedback is a nightmare.
Well, I've been having issues with my in ears. It's getting really loud. Like during the show, it'll get more and more muddy, and I don't know if that's my ears or my actual ears, or if the mix is changing. So I'm struggling with that a little bit myself. So the in-ears are tricky too.
I'm going to tell you two things of that too. I don't know what kind of in-ears you're using, but there's fatigue and the volume that you're using. Because the reason your ears make wax is it's a sound absorber. You're fighting that signal coming to you. So once that builds up too, things are going to get muddy, and it's muddy because it's that high end. That's the thing you're going to lose later in life. Your high
so
end.
I need to protect that.
And so that's why speech doesn't cut through and things like that.
Right.
I remember because I DJ'd, I would cup, say, these cans. I would have my left ear off so that I could hear my monitors. Right. And I went in to get my first set of molds in, that was 05, I think it was. Sure. E5s. And the person in Nashville doing the mold said, well, I part of the process is I'm going to check your ears.
Right.
And they put me through this whole thing. And sure enough, my left ear from DJing, it showed this curve of what I've lost.
Really?
And there were quite a few years. It was about 1.5, 2K. It sounded like tinfoil being scratched, like
right.
If it was too loud. That seems to have come back because I don't have that anymore. And I also know to bring that out for me. But I haven't had that in years.
Well,
I mean, you can heal from some things.
Right.
But
I mean, all this stuff is a renewable resource, a non-renewable resource that like your hearing and your teeth and all of us. So.
Right.
So I need to work on that. So do you have any advice for either me with my monitor sound to do that? I mean, to make should I be using floor monitors or should I be or are in-ears the way to go?
That's your preference.
It is.
A lot of people still use monitors or at least have side fills.
Right.
I was out with the Commodores last year. And
were you really?
Yeah.
How awesome is that?
One guy didn't use in-ears at all. It was all wedges across the front, right? Downstage.
Right.
And then they always had side fills. and the other used in-ears strictly. So it's your preference. And and so also with in-ears, some people use crowd mics and some don't. And there's an isolation from the crowd.
Right.
So they have crowd mics up. They also make in-ears now. And the ones now, I think they're up to like 8 or 10 drivers now.
Right.
And there are some with microphones on the side that you can dial. So it has an outside microphone that you can dial the ambient outside, noise
separately.
so that you're not separated.
Yeah.
I remember when in-ears became popular, there were people that fell because their equilibrium was off.
Yeah.
Because they were so isolated.
It's strange. I usually do one in and one out.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. And doing the one in, one out, some people like do it for certain songs.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And like, I only need this to find my key and I'm happy now. Things are going,
Right.
and it's also on what their mix is. If I'm getting my key off of a piano or, if they're not playing their own guitar,
right. I can see that.
I can tell you so many different scenarios, and it's, and mixing monitors for someone, it's about knowing what their needs are. And then once I hear your mix for a while, I can kind of fix that during the show before you point at your mic and say, me up, I know where you are.
Right.
Or try to be.
I think for me, what it's sounding like is like like everybody else is coming up, like where I'm losing the clarity on me. So I don't know. I'm worried that it's just fatigue.
Well, it is. It's your ears clamping down.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's what it feels like. So,
yeah. And I mean, and so how much would an average set be for you? Or night?
We played
3 hours.
3 hours. Yeah. And so, and at the first set 1, it sounds great. Set 2, right. I don't really notice, but by set 3, it's, I don't have it turned up, but by set 3, I take at least one out, maybe both, and just hear through the mains and through the 1 or 2 stage monitors we have. So just to for comfort, like, cause it's a strange feeling that starts happening when all that sound is just,
it's your ears clamping down.
Yeah.
It's too much for too long.
Yeah, I think so.
And it can be your ears. It can be the volume that you've set them for.
Right.
And by all means, I'm telling you right now, be careful. Because Lorrie Morgan, she had so much of a high end, and she would go like this. I need that crispy.
Yeah.
And I know what to bring up. And when I would cut to her mix, I would turn so I have in-ears and I have a pack. So when I cut to someone's mix, it goes to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would turn my pack down because I'd taste spinal fluid when I'd hit her mix. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And I'm like, that's Lord, what you are hurting yourself.
When you sing, though, that's what you think you need. Like, because you sing better when you can hear the highs. And like you said, the crispy, when you can hear it that way, then it feels like you can hear the intricacy of your voice, and it sounds so good that it makes it fun to sing, but it just doesn't last long.
And the nuance, and especially if you have a little verb going in there too. Oh yeah, it's I get that, but she would have it so loud, and she had just lost so much over the years that. I mean, even with monitors probably and whatnot, and that she was compensating for that. And she would do this and like, oh my gosh, more, like I just felt like I need you to sign something that I'm not, responsible for hurting you. I'll give you what,
right.
I'll send it to you.
But I mean, she needs to hear to sing too. I mean, that's what she does.
And even speaking of that, there was a time where I would mix just an acoustic player, acoustic guitar and vocal. And they would want their wedge up so much. They were fighting. So there were times where is it more vocal that you need or a little less guitar? Because now you're just fighting. You're climbing, and as the night goes on. And your monitor is so loud that I've even backed the PA down, or I'm just putting the clarity over what your monitor is hitting the wall and coming back with.
Right.
So, and you've got to be careful with that. I heard a story about a guy that worked for Prince, And Prince said, I need 1 dB of 4K. And the guy reached up the console and didn't even turn a dial. And Prince hit a chord and goes, you're fired.
He knew it?
So you've got to be careful. He knew he didn't get it. He knew he asked for it and he didn't get it and fired the dude.
That's awesome. I mean, it sucks
but
for the
younger
dude.
guys, younger musicians, it's like, and there's a delicacy to it. Like, look, you're fighting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy at the venue is telling me it's too loud because they're trying to eat in here too. You know what I mean? And you've got your monitors up so loud.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I just back this down? Can I back this down? Because the whole thing too is if you were just sitting in a chair playing, you've got your acoustic, you've got that resonating on your chest, you've got your own vocal. Why are you not using some of that?
Right.
Why do you need so much? And you're not, this is not in-ears, this is monitors.
Right.
Why don't we bring all of that down? What if I cut that off altogether? Are you telling me you couldn't play and sing?
Yeah,
if
exactly.
you can hear your guitar, it's right there on you.
Yeah.
So you get that back down and it gets to something reasonable.
Right.
And now you've got more control over it. And now I can give a lot more to the room.
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking. Exactly. Of instead of bringing things up, which I don't want to do, of bringing the mix down and kind of leaving me where I'm at, where I started, and see if I can get some clarity that way.
Well, and here's another thing with digital consoles, and I've been dealing that with the band I'm with now, is that you save your show, right? And then you go to the next show. And a lot of times too, here's another thing. Sound check, you're not giving it. You're not bringing it.
No.
Next thing you know, now it's showtime. There's a crowd. The energy level's up. I've even been to shows where the drummers are playing the song almost twice as fast because now that adrenaline is going. Like, wow, that's not even the tempo of the song.
Right.
So what happens is they keep creeping up. Mo guitar.
Everybody's more. Nobody ever asks for less.
Then you save that. And then you go to the next show. And now my fader can't even go anywhere.
Right.
You've brought things slowly up. So what I do is I'm like, we need to go back, start from scratch again.
That's probably smart.
And I also notice where singers will, and this is a thing, and I'm not saying, where they'll turn their pack up on certain songs. It's not a mix thing. It's, I need to hear, like if it's just an acoustic and vocal or, they'll kind of mess with their pack, which is a great thing. Good. Right. You've got that control, without having to turn to me and go, I need this done and this, I can just kind of dial my pack on this song. But yeah, so being able to save and go to do the next show and you just start creeping and creeping and creeping and creeping. And then you start needing drums and tracks or bass player, like all that stuff starts creeping up because I've crept this up. Now I don't hear the bass so much. Well, everything just starts, and say with monitors, in the days where I would go and mix at some club where you've got wedges and you have to ring things out and the worst is the little short throw single space EQs. But these engineers come in and they're ringing out and it's just creeping down. Like it just turns into a whole volume thing down. Right. So I bring everything back up to 0 and let me re-ring because I've got nowhere to go from these past 2 weeks of engineers, guys coming in and just ringing things out and bringing more and more and more down to get rid of something. Well, if you take an EQ and you just flatten it all, that's volume.
Yeah, that's everything. Exactly.
Right. That's everything.
Yeah.
So if I've got nowhere to go, we need to get back up to here.
So I guess your advice for our sound guy and for probably all sound guys would be to kind of start at bring it up to 0 and then maybe not for each show, but at least every few. And to come back up?
I would say so. And then also be honest with yourself. Like if you're pulling an ear and like you're telling me by the third set of a night, I'm hearing it this way.
Right.
Be aware of that. let your sound guy know.
Okay.
Like, I'm going to need this and I need that. Or, and if pulling an ear is the thing that you need to do, you know, there's a pay attention to what you need.
Right.
And vocalize that. Okay. I'm afraid I need ears and a wedge.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to take and maybe in that wedge, all you need is vocal and whatever instrument you need to get your key. If you're playing acoustic, I just want vocal and acoustic in my wedge, and I want the rest of the band in one ear. Or if you're harmonizing, whatever, because you can split things up. For instance, on say a Sennheiser or even a Shure Pack, you can do a stereo mix, right?
Right.
But you can also do, it's called, there are 2 buttons on your pack, and it's called stereo focus. So what I've done with some band guys is it's almost like 2 separate mixes, 2 monos. It's not mono really, but what they'll do is they can hit a button and pan it to the left. Now it doesn't go to the left. It goes to the left mix into both ears. Okay. So on certain songs, they'll pan that mix, where on this, I need these things.
So it goes stereo left.
Yeah, it is. But it's technically a mono thing. It's not, you're just panning to the mono side. So it's almost like you're getting 2 separate mixes. But when you're down the middle, it's your stereo mix of everything.
That might be something.
But I have more over here to the left and then more to the right, and you do a focus.